Okay, at this time I would like to call the May meeting of the MSD of North Kelsey Board of Education to order. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Slagle, if you could read our vision, mission, core beliefs, and high priorities, please.
Our vision, we inspire all students to achieve their potential for learning and life in a safe and supportive environment. Mission, we partner with our community to create a dynamic and innovative educational experience, empowering students to become educated, productive, and responsible citizens. Our core belief, we believe our community is vital to our educational success. Everyone is valued and treated with respect, and always telling the truth, an educational opportunity for all, student-centered programs challenging and inspiring learning in the pursuit of excellence through a strong sense of pride. Our high priorities, enhancing the student experience, investing in administrators and staff, fostering strong relationships among all, and maximizing resources.
Thank you. And we'll note we have no patron concerns tonight. So we're on to the minutes, claim docket, and consent items.
All right, well, this is going to be a fun night because we have a lot of good news scattered throughout. So we'll get going here. Then we have our minutes from our previous meeting on April 10th, 2024. Our claim docket for the period of April 10th, 2024 to May 13th, 2024. Following resignations and retirements for the 2023-2024 school year, Paula Coleman resigned as our instructional assistant at North Elementary, effective end of the school year. We've hired Jeff Barnes as a technology specialist, level 2, and McKenna Carter is going to finish out our year with Spanish class. Shelley Schmidt was hired as our English academic bull for North Posey Junior High. And then we have our hiring and transfers. We've hired a Spanish teacher, J. Lee Lebrecht. Jim Scheller and James White have volunteered to be our high school boys tennis team, to be assistants with our high school boys tennis team. Michelle Parrish and Anthony Hotman, they are going to work with the girls junior high team. Chad Hone will be our head wrestling coach at North Posey, and we're going to recommend Kevin Cole as our girls varsity basketball coach. We have the following overnight and out-of-state field trips. FFA to attend Indiana FFA State Convention at Purdue, June 17th through the 20th. And our high school volleyball team to attend camp at University of Louisville, July 10th through the 12th. We have these requests for facility use. Our marching band is requested at the time from June 5th to the 7th and July 22nd through 26th for summer band camps. And then we have the Wolfgang Orchestra and Chorus to use our high school auditorium on December 14th, 2024 for their community performance. And we have the following renewals. Renewal with Instruction Corps, which is Canvas. Teachers use that to do their work with students on daily assignments at the cost of $8,280. That's a slight increase from last year. And then we have a renewal with Sherpa Desk for our technology and custodial ticket system at $1,848, an increase of $168.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve the consent items.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items.
I'll second.
On to discussion.
I had a question about the Canvas subscription. Is that a high school thing or is that all schools?
It's all schools use it right now.
Okay. It's really well, I mean, it's used a lot. I know in the high school when I was up there. Seems to be a really good program, and that didn't seem very expensive for what it does for us.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have a concern about the girls' basketball, and it's because we didn't get this information until
10:15 today. Not a lot of time to digest.
Agree.
And I see the letters dated May 9th, but I understand you guys were all out Thursday, Friday, is that correct?
Yes. Wednesday, we dealt with the storm and pending weather, and then now Thursday, Friday.
I think moving forward, we're going to try to schedule an executive session for these type of personnel issues. And we can cancel that at the last minute still, right? If we wouldn't have any.
Yeah, I'm not worried with that.
That's it. I don't know
You
if
may
that
have an
alleviates your
executive session
concern.
scheduled every meeting and then just cancel it if we see them. I like that idea rather than get hung up and not be able to do something.
Any further discussion? Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. On to new business. Mr. Slagle.
All right. We want to recognize one of our seniors, Caleb Egan, who was recognized by the Indiana Football Digest Gritty Awards as small school All-State. We also had Coach Waylon Shank recognized for the 2023 Class 2A Coach of the Year by the Indiana Football Digest. I was hoping folks could be here tonight, but we have softball senior night and things going on at the high school that kept them from being here.
I think Caleb was on numerous all-state teams. I don't think it was just that. I think he's on several other all-state teams in that too. And I think he competed, maybe this is one that he actually went up and competed on, because I think Waylon went up and helped coach it, if I'm not mistaken.
And I think he is on the North-South All-Star, and that's in the summertime.
Okay.
So some great accomplishments.
We've asked Ms. McMunn here this evening to update us on high ability.
So at the beginning of this year, Dr. Walden and I decided that we were going to go to the Indiana Association of Gifted Students conference, because for a long time, even as a principal, high ability has been a concern. So we went to the conference just to learn as much as we could. We learned a lot. We learned a lot about identification and different aspects of a high ability program, some state requirements and things like that. And then when Mr. Slagle came on board as well, he had a lot of passions about high ability and wanted to also come alongside us and work with us to just develop a better program pre-K through 12th grade. So what we are doing so far, we have made some changes with our identification process. We have made it a little bit more practical for the kids and for the teachers. Right now we have some assessments that we give in grades K, 2, and 5. We are going to extend that to 7th grade so that we've got a junior high component to identify as well. What we had been doing is our kiddos would go from the elementary schools, move on to the junior high, and those high ability identifications would just kind of hold. We want to improve the process of that identification. We've added some exit procedures too for kiddos that aren't performing. We've changed the way that we use those scores, which we think are going to increase our numbers, which will also increase funding, but increasing our numbers so that we can build just more of a robust program. So we've also included in this grant that I have submitted for the fiscal year 25, we've included certification stipends to encourage staff members to become high ability certified. That is a coursework that goes along with that. So we've done that much like we did with the English language learners, which paid off big time. We were able to find someone, and that person has already obtained the license this quickly. So we're hoping to do the same sorts of things there, just to build that knowledge within all of the buildings. Let's see. Let me see if I had anything else written down. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the assessment we're doing at the junior high or
Right.
7th grade, is that before they get to 7th grade?
Nope, it'll be during
That'll
the
be
seventh
during
grade
the
year.
7th grade year?
Mhm.
Okay. And that'll set for high school honor classes and stuff like that as well?
Yeah. That along with iLearn and teacher recommendation. There's a 3-component procedure that our identifying teams look at. We look at several different things that are dictated by the state really and best practices. But yeah, we use that during the 7th grade year. The 7th grade honors classes will be built from teacher recommendation from 6th grade, and then also who's already identified.
Okay, what kind of numbers are you talking about being? Is there a limit? Is there an amount or?
There's not necessarily. I mean, we have to,
What are we thinking? I mean,
we are identifying the top 96% in each grade level. That's what we're looking at as qualification for high ability.
96 and higher?
The top five.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's an awful-
96
that's an awful lot-
percentile.
that's an awful
You're
lot.
right.
We're gonna
Yes,
do
yes,
the top
96 percentile. I said that wrong.
Top 4.
Top 4%.
The state suggests that we should be identifying anywhere from
4
4
to
to
10.
10% of your population.
And that's in our grade level, not statewide or.
Right. That is one change that we've made. So up until this year, we've been working on national norms because that's what we understood it to be, nationally normed tests. But that's one of the things that Dr. Walden and I learned in December is that it really should be local norms. So that's one of the things we're changing.
What if that top 4%, then that'd be about what it'd be in having about 100 kids in a class, that'd be about 4 kids per class. What if one class was just an exceptional class and there were 8 kids in there?
Well, that's something where it's not just that percentile. That's what we're
We can
using on the
use it.
assessments.
Okay.
We have teacher recommendation, and it's a group in each building. It's a group of teachers that come together
So
and,
you're not handcuffed, that it's gotta be, okay.
no, it's not cut and dry.
One of the things we were talking about when we were looking at the assessment cuts is that, we have maybe an exceptional class, and when you look at that national norm, we have a large group performing over 90% in the national norm. Well, let's say there's 6 of them, right? Well, that, not all 6 are in the 96 percentile or higher of our local norm, but it makes sense to identify all of those because they're performing at the top 10% nationally.
Right.
So we've created some leeway there for us to be able to say, this makes more sense.
So right now, we're utilizing like our art and music teachers. I know we're
Right now.
elementary, but
That's
now
not
we're
the
trying to
plan.
get certified people to do that.
So we, one of the things that that Mr. Slagle has worked with us with is providing staff to be able to study that this year and develop a better program, and then provide a better service.
That's another question. I'm not sure I understand completely what Lindsay asked, but if a kid is outstanding in the top 4% and 4% nationally in art or music, but their math scores aren't very good and their English scores, are they out of that or
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, there are different criteria that we would identify. You can identify as math high ability, English language arts high ability, general, which just means all the way around, or other, which includes the arts. That's where we encourage the arts.
So is this just another form of differentiated instruction?
Well-
But now they're identified,
Yes.
those high kids?
Yes, yes, absolutely, because that's another reason why we want certified instructors in the building. They may not be necessarily the ones providing that high ability pullout, we want them to differentiate within the classroom better as well.
So these kids will be pulled out.
Yes, yes, they're currently are already being pulled out.
So are you expecting to need additional instructors, or can this be accomplished with our current staff?
Right now, it can be accomplished with our current staff. We're anticipating larger numbers, which the state, that's how the state determines our funding for our high ability grant that we apply for every year. I mean, we would love for that to pay for another person to be able to provide this. It's hard to say if we'll have that number, but that would be our goal.
And this is like unrelated, but since we were talking about the junior high, how do you decide who goes in honor classes? Do the teachers say, hey, these kids should be
Right
in?
now,
Yeah.
Right now, there are a couple of assessments that the sixth graders take that the junior high uses. They have criteria. I'm not sure what that criteria is, but they have criteria that they use. Also with teacher recommendation, I learn scores, those sorts of things. Yeah.
So the high ability, if they're in it in third grade, they go to fourth grade, they're automatically in it?
Yes.
They don't have to test again?
No, they will test again in fifth grade.
Okay, well, I didn't know.
Right, and there may be a reason to remove from that program, but we are putting in place this year, for next year, exit procedures that will be posted on our website and everything they can be removed even if a parent were to say, I don't want my kiddo pulled out, I don't want them to participate, then there are procedures that will follow. There's also an appeals procedure as well, because once we
If you're not
identify.
selected, if they think my
Mhm.
child should be, they can say.
Mhm.
And is there anything on their diploma that signifies?
So no, not the high ability. Now those kids are often receive academic honors or technical honors, things like that. That would identify them, but not as high ability.
The distinction of high ability is mainly your elementary grades. We haven't had a way to we have a way to identify them, unlike junior high and high school where you get into your honors classes or your dual credit courses.
The changes to the program that we want to make are going to be heavily elementary centered. Yeah, the junior high adding the identification in the junior high, there may be a little bit of tweaking, but they already have the honors classes. The high school already has honors classes, AP classes, dual credit. They already have that. So it won't really change. Now, it might change the kids that are identified in those classes, so that would increase our numbers as well. But a lot of those kids are already taking them. But the programming changes will predominantly be the elementary.
Now, is this gonna be across the board as high ability? I mean, are they going to work basically math and English, or will they be challenged with mechanical?
It will be cross-curricular,
So-
all well-rounded, yeah.
Yeah.
We want it to be very, very,
Challenging.
yes, problem solving, project-based, yes.
When you think about high ability curriculum, if you're looking at let's say a third grader is learning specific standards in their math class. Well, when we do the high ability work, we may be taking those sort of same standards and applying them to different areas of the world, or having them think through and do different types of application, more higher order thinking of the same sort of content.
Not just upgrading and doing
Not trying to
third
accelerate
grader
them to
doing
fourth
sixth
grade
grade
or
work.
fifth grade,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
Just
Right, deeper
challenging them
thinking.
to think more rigorously and more adaptive.
So when we get into the high school grade level, we'll have more of these honor classes, and we're going to want these kids to stretch and try to achieve some more difficult classes, right?
Mhm.
Their, I guess, pushback is going to be, that could hurt my GPA. Have we looked at how we will weight some of these classes either more heavily, or just have we looked at the weighting to see and make sure that we're at the right weighting for a grade point average coming out of our high school?
We have not yet.
Okay.
We have, at least not this committee. I'm not gonna say that that conversation hasn't been had with diploma strength conversations and things like that, but from a high ability standpoint, no, we haven't had that conversation.
We don't have weighted grades at all now, do we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Doesn't play into valedictorian status.
Oh,
but
okay.
GPA, we do.
Okay.
I really do think those conversations are being had, just not from a high ability standpoint.
Anything else?
We do have a broad-based committee, planning committee, that we will meet periodically throughout the year. Greg has graciously agreed to be a part of that committee. So he'll be able to also, report back on how things are going too. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right.
All right. We have some friends with us this evening to help us talk to us about our bond project and lay things out. So we have John is here from Bose McKinney, and Matt is here from Stiefel, and Jennifer's back there from Hafer. And so you're welcome to use the table here if you need to spread things out, or we'll go from there.
What do I need that for?
The
Yeah,
timeline.
do you want to go with finance, or do we want to do timeline
Let's
first?
start off with the timeline.
Okay, so you should have this project timeline, yeah, proposed timetable. And this is for approval of financing, but we've also added, Jennifer's added some dates for construction that we'll talk through as well. So assuming the board approves tonight, what we would then start in May, June, and then July is a series of hearings that we would have notices in advance. And that's where you have preliminary determination hearings as well as a 1028. These are statutory hearings that you would have where the public can give comment. And at the conclusion of that process in July 17th, we would have a preliminary determination. We would publish that. And that would start a 30-day clock for anyone who may want to call this up for a referendum to do so. And that is because we're anticipating the size of this project being what's called a controlled project. Controlled project is if it meets a certain threshold in terms of assessed value, and what's what their AV met,
Anything over 10 million.
10 million.
Yeah.
Then they would, someone would be able to pull that into a referendum where the voters would have to approve. Now, they would have to get either the lesser of 500 signatures on a petition, or 5% of the registered voters. More than likely, you're probably looking at 5% of your registered voters. So what that would look like is in the 30-day period after the notice gets published in July, someone would have to get those signatures of 5% of the registered voters. And if they did that, if they were successful, it would kick it to a ballot for referendum approval by voters. But assuming that's not going to be the case, we would then in late July start the process to get appraisals on real estate, because we would need to use that as essentially collateral for the financing. And then we would have building corporation, your building corporation approve the lease and amendments in the September time period. We are shooting for a closing in mid-December. We would sell the bonds in mid-November, mid to late November. We would close and get the proceeds in mid-December of 2024. And before that, if you look, you'll see some dates, notably October mid-October, we've got construction documents issued for bidding. And then we would have in around mid-November, November 11th, construction bids due. And so that way you could time it so that you then would, once you get your proceeds from the sale of the bonds, you get your money in the bank accounts. In December, you'd be able to start work fairly quickly after that. And we would be working on the design phase in the next several months. We also, Jennifer and I talked and met with Todd and Michelle on some ideas of bringing in a construction professional to help with some budgeting to make sure that we're on track with hitting our targets, so that we're not going to design something that isn't within budget. So that's high level summary of the process. Any questions on that? Okay. Just as a quick, you have another document here, reimbursement resolution. And so what this says is, since you're not going to get money from the sale of bonds until December, if you have costs for that construction manager that's going to help with budgeting or architectural fees or other issuance costs before then, and you want to pay those out now in advance, this would give you the flexibility to do that. You don't have to do it. If you approve this, it doesn't mean you have to do that, but it gives you the flexibility to do that so you don't get behind the 8 ball and get slowed down. And so that's the purpose of this reimbursement resolution. Again, you approve that tonight, that gives you the flexibility going forward if you need to do that. Any questions on the reimbursement resolution?
Resolution need to be done tonight, or is that something down the road? If it was determined to be done somewhere else in the process, it could be brought up.
It's in your packet. It's on page
Yeah, it was in the board packet.
36.
We were planning on voting on it tonight.
Yeah, we typically like having them both done up front early in the process. Yeah. Again, you don't have to use it, even if you approve it. You can decide if you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
I think we've typically done that.
We have in the
Yes.
past.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's pretty customary.
We want to go ahead and look at doing that now before we talk about this.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
You said that just gives us the ability, if needed.
Kind of just to repay ourselves, right?
That's right. And not have to wait until and slow down the process and pause the process until mid-December.
Be looking for a motion to adopt the resolution.
Do we also want to do the proposed timetable? That was in here as well. Do we? Okay. Outlined. Okay. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the reimbursement resolution.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion on that? We kind of already had some. Somebody else. Okay. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Stand back here so I'm not in anybody's way. So we have done this presentation a few different times, so I think it probably looks somewhat familiar to you all. So a couple of different things we've talked about in the past. 95 cents is the tax rate goal moving forward. So all of our assumptions would maintain that 95 cents moving forward. Now, as we talked about in the past, We can hit the 95 cents exactly in years that you do bond issues, and years that you don't do bond issues, you're gonna be subject to whatever that assessed value does moving forward. While we've shown this nice and clean and perfect at 95 cents, it's not going to look like this when you move forward. So part of that is we want to make sure we're pretty conservative in our projections. I know we don't want to get in a spot where the tax rate starts going up without us causing it to do that. So this first page, we've looked at a growth assumption of your assessed value at 0%. And just to go over this again, if we're fixed at 95 cents, as your assessed value goes up, that allows you to increase your levy, essentially do more projects if you so choose. If your assessed value doesn't grow at all, then you're going to have a fixed levy moving forward as well. So it all goes back to what your assessed value is going to do. Last 2 years, you guys have had really, really good growth. This current tax year, I think you grew a little over 8%. The year before that, I think you were 15, 16, 17%. So you guys had 2 really, really strong years of assessed value growth. Throwing out those 2 years, you guys have been a lot more stable when it comes to your assessed value. A few years up a little bit, a few years down a little bit. So just because we've seen 2 really good years, we don't want to assume that that's going to essentially continue in perpetuity. So we've run this page as if your assessed value essentially flatlines moving forward. The other thing that we've been told by the board here is having flexibility in the future to come back and do additional projects, right? We don't want to do this one project and then not be able to do anything else for a long time. So we have assumed in this that you could come back in 2030 and do an additional project. I think that's kind of the year the board pegged is wanting to have that opportunity to come back and do that again. So 95 cents, no AV growth, having the ability to come back in 2030 is what this page illustrates. Based on those guidelines, you could look at somewhere around the $7 million borrowing this year, then have capacity out in 2030 to do an additional $12.7 million. Again, that assumes no assessed value growth. As that assessed value changes, this picture is going to change each and every year. But I would hope this would paint really the worst case scenario in that, you know, could your assessed value go down? It certainly could in any one year, but really looking at your history, what we know about farmland moving forward, I would expect you to be somewhere north of 0%. But again, I know we like to stay a little bit conservative in looking at these projections. We have one more page that we've shown a different scenario. So this looks at a 1-year assessed value growth. So when we get your assessed value later this fall, typically they come out somewhere between August, September, October. We've looked at what if your assessed value grows another 10%. Potentially unlikely, but you have seen that the last couple of years. I just want you to show, I want to show the power of assessed value growth. Staying at 95 cents, keeping flexibility to come back in 2030 and do another project. If you see just 1 year of 10% growth, what we were showing is 7 million and then 12.7. Now you could borrow 12 million this year, which is kind of where the maximum par amount came from. But then have a maximum capacity out in 2030 of an additional $18 million. So again, we're not here saying, oh, we think this is going to happen. We more or less just want to give you an idea of the power of that assessed value. Part of the resolution that you'll see, I believe, next month is a maximum par amount of $12 million. That $12 million does not obligate you to borrow the full $12 million. So really this resolution is being set up to give you that flexibility to respond to what your assessed value does this fall. If your assessed value doesn't grow at all, then you can come back and do somewhere around that $7 million project, keep things level. If you do see significant assessed value growth and you do want to stay at that 95 cents forward, that resolution would give you the ability to borrow anywhere up to $12 million. If assessed value lands somewhere in between, we can respond to that, update numbers. You guys can decide exactly how much of that $12 million that you want to do. And so while you may have the opportunity to do 12 million, I just want to be clear that does not obligate you. This is not an all or none proposition. You can do any number up to $12 million. You just can't go above that. when we originally started talking about potentially somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 million this year, if you set that as your maximum par amount and then you do see the assessed value growth, you cannot borrow any more than $7 million under that resolution without restarting the entire process, the process taking several months the way it's currently set up right now. So you guys may have had those conversations, but I just wanted to bring it back to the resolution is set up to really provide flexibility without boxing you into a decision right now. We hope we see really good growth this fall, but this will set you up to really respond to whatever that is and then make that decision in November when we go to sell bonds, at which time you'll have all the data points to make that decision. I know I talk fast, I just said a whole lot of stuff. What questions?
Do you remember, was that last year, the year before, when we did the GEO bond? Was that November when those came in? I can't remember.
The GEO bond was I think even in December.
Yeah, it
Your
was closed
assessed value
like
came
days
out
before the, yeah.
so
And you guys
late.
were, I think, the last in the state.
You were that year. Now,
And across the state, it was later than usual, correct? Or not?
it was by and large a little bit, but you guys
You
were
guys were way
significantly
later.
later than everybody else.
So we would expect to be able to, before the November timeline, be able to adjust based on our numbers.
I think I've seen maybe one or two county AVs come in November in my career. Typically, the very, very latest is early October, but we would have 98% of them by September. The majority of, they're supposed to have them in by August 1st.
Yeah.
But
Are there any significant changes to that, to the appraisal process that this year that would affect it or could affect that?
Not a statewide.
no, they tweaked some things, nothing major. I will say, the big thing that we're seeing right now is they redid the way they did they assessed farmland back in 2015, 2016 that caused the value of farmland to go down pretty significantly. Now, the way the formula works, we're back on an upswing and are projected to be on that upswing for a few more years. So a community like yours that is highly agricultural should have some built-in growth. But really, as we look over the course of history, anytime that farmland really gets too high, the state comes back in and fixes it. And so I'm not counting on that to happen moving forward really past this year. But if it does stay the way it is, the formula will help your assessed value, at least for the foreseeable future.
And that's not to say anything about the subdivision development that you guys are looking at down the road that would cause that AV increase.
Yeah, and
in that reference.
they also tweaked the supplemental deduction. So I think we talked about this in the past, and not to go into a math exercise, even though I enjoy that part. But your market value of your house is not what you pay taxes on. There are deductions that you take off of that, and you pay, your tax rate is put on your net assessed value. They increased the supplemental deduction for taxes first payable this year. So what you're paying right now, they increased that, so you're paying on a lower net assessed value. That's gonna phase out over the next 2 years, which is essentially artificially giving you a little bit of a bump coming the next 2 years. So I expect you to see decent growth this year. Now, is that 3%, 6%, 8%? I don't know, but I would be really, really surprised if your assessed value went down. Having said that, there's no guarantees at all on what's gonna happen. And again, moving forward legislatively, they can make changes every single time. But this is one of those, we set up the resolution for maximum flexibility, and then we just have to wait and see what the numbers bear out.
And that's why your reimbursement resolution says that we reasonably expect the debt issuance to be not to exceed 12 million. It gives you that flexibility. It gives you just a top limit. So you can, if we need to go to 7 million, that is under 12, of course. But if the AV comes back and it's good enough and supports, you can go all the way up to 12 and keep that tax rate the same so that the taxpayers don't pay any more.
And the only difficulty about this is when it comes to the construction folks side, like I can't really give them, here is your actual budget, because that budget could be a sliding scale. So that's the one part that I certainly feel for that side, but the way this is all set up, you're approving something way in advance of when we actually know what that number is going to be, and so unfortunately, that's just the way the system is set up right now.
So when this comes in October or whatever, we'll hear about it at that point, and you'll tell us this is what this is what it means to you. How much of this do you want to spend?
I will update all of this. I'll be in contact with the administration. You
And then-
guys will
and then
circle
we
up and
decide
make the
we're gonna
decision.
spend.
100%, yeah. Yeah, we will not do anything until we're told directionally what you want to do.
I appreciate the thoroughness,
Oh,
because one
yeah.
of my questions was gonna be, well, does it have to be? Well, you answered that well before.
Yeah, and again, that's the problem with having to approve something 6 months before you know. We really just set these things up for maximum flexibility so that you can make the decision when you actually get the data, as opposed to being boxed in and having to be a certain set of circumstances regardless of what happens in the future.
I feel really confident that I understand what you're talking about. I don't know that I felt that way some other meetings.
That's what we try to do. Thank you.
So we have Steeple and Bose McKinney telling us how we can get money, then Jennifer's here to tell us how we can spend it.
Sure. So I brought a few paper copies. I do have a jump drive, so I don't know if you want to load it or how we want to go about that.
You might be able to steal one of theirs.
We just pass it out up here.
That's fine.
I don't, but if you want to give me your email, I can email it to you too.
Usually I just plug it in the back.
Thank you.
There's a lot of files on it, but I don't know if that is going to be.
And before we transition to that, is the board okay with proceeding forward with these preliminary determination and 1028 hearings that we've got on the calendar here? Do you know if there's any-
those dates.
And those are, and May 22nd is when we're going to send out that notice. And that'll go into the newspapers, and then it'll set the first preliminary determination hearing on June 10th. And then the second one, as well as the first, or as far as the 1028 and the second preliminary determination on July 8th. And just wanted to make sure the board was okay with those dates. We'll need to proceed with publishing those.
Yeah, there we go.
22nd.
So it looks like to me that the hearings are all on already established
Right.
dates.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we paired it with your current calendar, and just wanted to make sure the board was okay with that.
Yeah.
I made the noise, so I had to work.
It's going to be the 513 date. Let me look on this.
It looks like the bottom one.
Yeah, it'll be probably the bottom one.
Pointing to the correct
Yes.
one.
There's some really.
There's no glare over here in front of the camera.
So here's a couple copies. There's 4 copies here, so.
It's not down on your Google Drive.
Okay, so I'll kind of stand off to the side somewhere where there's not a glare, but you can all see this. So essentially, I think we've presented this before. And this is the schematic drawings. This is not where we are with the project. We just want to clarify that now. It's really just an update to keep everybody kind of in the forefront. So this is the CTE wing. This is the existing building as it is now. It's separated by colors so you can start to see the areas. And we followed these color schemes throughout. As we start to develop the different buildings, we started to kind of keep those all together. So you want to flip to the next one. So the next view on here, it shows the demo work that would occur in this area. So essentially what we're doing is we're taking a hard look at the ag shop. We had some walkthrough visits. We've talked to all the teachers. We've looked at what really functions for them and how they can make their spaces work better for the different types of classes they want to teach. Trying to separate the welding shop to have a classroom space so that the kids can have a clean space and then an actual workspace. Same with the construction shop, being able to have an actual office, or not an actual office, an actual classroom. So what we did here is we took a look at what spaces were existing and then how we could reconfigure them. So anything in the red is the demolition that's going to occur in order to do this. And as you can see on the left-hand side here, we're looking at, which is existing the maintenance shop here. So we'll be constructing a new maintenance shop between the football field and the softball field. And then that allows engineering to move into the existing maintenance shop so that the school will be used for school functions. If you want to go to the next one to kind of show this. So the next sheet shows the new construction and the plan for it. So with the ag area, they'll have a new space for food science and a new kitchen space. A lot of that space now functions fairly well, but it will create a new office in this bottom left corner and then keeps the ag shop in the same space. Currently in this top right corner is where they store a tractor. That tractor would move out to the new maintenance and restroom facility, which would allow the janitor to have some storage area for some different toilet paper and paper towels and things like that that they don't want to keep always out in that maintenance shop, so they don't have to walk so far to get that stuff. That would also allow a space for a new air compressor, which would serve this whole area. So instead of having separate air compressors for each space, it would be one air compressor. So that's a nice change too. The existing storage for ag would remain the same. That space is set up pretty well and functions well for what they need. And then moving into the welding classroom. So currently in the welding shop, they have tables over here where they meet for class, and they also work in the same space. So everything's really dirty right now. So the intent is to try to separate those spaces. So by moving the engineering out of these two classrooms, it allows us to create a new welding classroom. So instead of the kids entering in straight to the weld shop where they can just walk around and touch everything, they'll now start to go straight to the welding classroom. They'll enter this welding classroom through this corridor. So we're creating a new corridor back here. They'll enter the welding classroom. It also allows to have a welding office here with 2 windows. So he'll be able to, if he's in his office, he can see both sides. So he can keep an eye on everyone. And then that'll have a direct connection to be able to go through this area here into the weld shop. So that also allows more space for more tools. The addition of new electrical systems, mechanical systems, most of the systems in that area have reached their extended use. And so that whole area will be refurbished. We're also adding new doors in this area. I know there's currently an access control project that's going to occur, but we'll ensure that that's part of what we're doing. And then with the construction classroom, so currently same thing. The kids are somewhat gathering in this area. In order to get from the weld to the construction classroom, they have to go through the welding classroom. And so just for a safety thing, we will create this new corridor, and then the kids would enter into this construction classroom. And then from there, they'll have lockers, a new corridor here. We still have a small tool storage area, and currently this whole area is really underutilized. It's an old paint booth and really in need of renovation. So once they enter the construction shop, the plan is to have a maintenance area or maintenance mezzanine above here where they could store any kind of wood and things like that, where they don't currently have a space to store that. And then any kind of dust equipment, anything that's dusty would be on the left side so that we could put a dust collection on this side, and then this side would become more tools. We'll still have a roll-up door between the two, so if they need to move heavy equipment, they can do so, and then keep a connection door there. Add a new overhead door on the north side here, excuse me, so they'd be able to go and bring heavy equipment in and out, things like that, when they build larger pieces of like I think they do dog houses or something close to that. They'd be able to bring them in and out that door. Also, I believe Nix has talked about potentially donating a building out here, and so that would be able to be a nice location out here for that, where the welding shop could store their metal. Likewise, when we get over to the engineering classroom, this is really set up well for that. The classroom would really be part of their workspace. It wouldn't really be separate. It's just kind of an idea of the space. So you can see how many kids would approximately be in here. And then a new area over here with some cabinetry and workspace. And then all of the 3D printers and items like that would be along this window so they could be vented to the north. And then keeping these closets and the storage area along here and a new office. So the nice thing about this is it's not too far from this space, but it allows these kids to really function and have some space of their own. We flip to the next sheet. So
access would be through the English hall.
Yeah, right past the art room. Yes,
through, yeah.
through junior high. Yeah.
Junior high art room,
Yes,
okay,
yes,
yes.
junior high art room. Yes.
I-
Clarify.
I had another
Sure.
questions too. So, and this might be for Michelle and Todd, but the kitchen in the ag, are we adding curriculum to food sciences for?
We currently have a food science course that they just sort of do the best they can do.
Okay.
But Mrs. Bender would like to really kind of amp that up to do some farm to table
Okay.
work.
And then also, we have bottle storage out there for compressed gas and stuff.
It's staying.
It's staying.
Yes, we
Where
are
is
not
that?
touching that.
Okay.
Yep, it's a good spot and everybody uses it, so.
Yep.
Yeah, it's intended to stay. And the idea with this food science area would be cabinetry all along this side and then trying to open this up. But as you notice on this, if you look at this plan, you see the hash walls, those are bearing walls. So anything that's bearing, we tried to minimize our, like how much openings we're putting through it, but yet we still wanted to function for what it needed. So we tried to look at those things just to balance, to make sure that there wasn't, we weren't just taking on a wall and then trying to come back and have to put in all the beams and everything else. So we tried to be efficient with that. Okay, so this is the maintenance and restroom facility. So what we heard is, right now there's not a lot of access for restrooms for softball and soccer. And so we thought it would be a great opportunity if we're moving the maintenance area, which is currently in here, out to this space, that if we could add a restroom, which would double for the maintenance building, and then also could be accessed by anyone that needed to use it. And then it also adds some parking out here, which is always a good thing. And this is really not developed yet. It's just a kind of a graphical idea of where it goes. So the next plan. So this is the layout of the maintenance building. So we met with Danny and we met with everyone and really listened to what they need. So we essentially have a space over here for the tractor. This allows it to move out of that indoor space. And then back here, we'd have miscellaneous storage for some small tools. The intent on this part would be a mezzanine, so we could put all of the mechanical equipment up there, and then also be able to put any kind of storage we needed on the second level. So if you look on the right side, everything from the right side over would be 18-foot ceilings, and everything from the left side over would be 10-foot ceilings. This would be a large garage door, so you could bring items in and out, and then pallet storage on either side, and then a stair to go up to that maintenance mezzanine on this side here. The left side here, so this would be the assembly and workbenches. So we would assume that this would be like some of the areas that work on desk and anything they're trying to repair and things like that. And then this back area would be a work area with a table, some lockers, a small office, and then mechanical room. And then these restrooms would be accessible from both sides. So you could use them if you're in the maintenance building, or you could enter them from this side, similar to your football, or to the, sorry, not football, the baseball outbuilding now. Any
So we would be
questions?
able to lock those
Yep.
from the maintenance
That's right.
side.
You can lock from there, you can lock from there. Yep. So that's where we are with the projects that we have to date. So I think, if we're looking at, what's going to be spent and anticipating that it could be up to 12 million, we really need to figure out what we designed to. So we don't want to get to the point where all of a sudden we find out in October that we need more projects. So in order to get there. So I think that's something that we need to take a look at, is what other projects are on the docket. If there's things that we need to start looking at designing and really get a hold of those now.
The science rooms in the junior high is still one that's been approved already.
Correct.
That'd be one that was on here.
But I don't know that that's going to get you to your threshold of where you want to be.
Yeah, because you want to make sure the definitions in your approval documents in the next month or so, your hearing notices and all of that are wide enough, broad enough to capture enough projects. And we've written it pretty broad, but making sure that we have enough, if indeed you have, 12 million to spend.
So could we include potential projects, and then if we come to find out we don't have, even $10 million or whatever, we can cut back on those projects at that time.
So one strategy is to go ahead and design them, and then they're there. And as you start to get capital, you can start to take those projects, take those drawings and bid them out and get them done. That's
Or
one
we could-
strategy.
We could put them on the shelf and
Correct.
bring them back.
Mhm.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
And if we only want to spend 7 or 10 or whatever, then in, 5, 6 years, if we want to pull those off the shelf, update them.
Or connect to public sewers or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, that would be the next question, is what if we can't find funding for that? That would probably come out of,
We have a meeting Monday afternoon, with some folks to talk about that. Sorry, I threw a wrench in there, I just thought in my head.
no, it's on my list.
Yeah, and ideally, I think we'd want to start figuring out which projects, if we are going to add more, or what we're going to work on within the next month, so that we can start to plan that. So we can really get a good idea of, the meetings and meeting with people, especially if they're teachers or whatever area we're going to look at, just so that everybody's got enough time to react, because those are the most successful projects, ones where people have input.
All right, any questions? Thank you all three.
Welcome.
Thank you. Jennifer didn't have to drive quite as far as you all did. Appreciate you,
So I just pulled this out.
coming down. Happy to do it. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. I think this should probably be, let's see, what is it? Summer school. We're gonna offer, our summer school this year. You see what we're gonna offer to start off. We'll start, elementary will be at North, both schools will be at North Elementary to work with third grade iRead, to start off in June. And then at the end of July, we'll work with second and third graders to get them on a jump start. And then you can see what we're offering with the high school. The state reimburses us for a 15-to-1 ratio. When it comes to the iRead, that won't matter. I think we have 6 or 9 kids who would qualify for that. So not enough to meet the ratio, but we still want to offer that, and are obligated to offer that as well.
Looking for a motion to approve the summer school offerings.
I'll make a motion to approve the summer school offerings.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
All right, moving on. We have our school handbooks and our athletic handbooks. They have been updated, and are updated on our website.
Didn't look like there were too many changes. So looking for a motion to approve the handbooks.
I make a motion to approve the handbooks for 24-25.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the handbooks? No, I had asked this in an earlier conversation about the change to the state law with the cell phones. And I know that it's addressed in here, but it sounds like there will also be an additional policy that we'll have at the corporation level covering that as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you're required now to have a board policy, and Neola will issue, after legislation closes, they go through and figure out, okay, what are all the new requirements? And so in May, at some point, they'll release that update that will have all the new policies that are required by this last round of legislation. So we'll get an update packet, and then we'll send that for reading, first read, second read, we'll approve those. So I should be getting that soon. I would anticipate June meeting having that update.
Any other discussion on the handbooks? A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
All right, next, we'd like for the board to approve not donation, but I guess it's a donation to DeWalt Tools from National Center of Construction, Education, and Research for use in our CTE program. It can be anywhere from, it was 5,000 to 25,000. We were unsure at the time what it was, how much it was going to be.
Need a motion to approve the donation to the CTE program.
I'll make a motion that we approve the donation.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion on this?
They're giving us a cash donation, or
No,
are they
tools.
giving us tools? They're giving us actual tools.
DeWalt Tools.
And did somebody have to apply for that? How did that come
Brad
about?
Wallace, right?
Yes, because he's the teacher for the NC, I always get too many C's or too many E's, NCCER, that his class was recognized as one of the highest performing on that exam. I think is how he explained it. And so they were recognized and awarded it.
That's great.
See, it's some real and good news. I told you it's all.
They just pick out and send it to us, and then we,
I would say along with that, and then maybe that's for later, the career day that we had was, I thought was phenomenal out there. I know there were some
Yeah, I guess
complaints,
that.
but I loved seeing all the trades out there and interacting with all students.
That was good.
All right, so all in favor of accepting the tool donation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Dr. Walton?
Next, we have the second read for our student section of Neola policies. We're looking for, if there are no changes on this second read, then we can do a motion to approve. So we don't have to motion to do anything for second read. But if there's any changes, then we'll make those changes and bring it back for approval next month. If there's no changes, then we can go for approval.
Looked like you had addressed anything I had written in there already. I noticed.
Yeah, it could get wording in there, so I'm guessing it was written by lawyers, no offense, Josh. But it was a lot of repetitive language also. I just felt there were some policies that very seldom would ever impact our community. Like the military. I mean, of course you're gonna take a kid from the military, you know, from a military family, but very, very thorough in all of their.
They are, and many of them you'll notice have like an Indiana code tied to it, that there's been some sort of legislation that says schools must, fill in the blank, right? One of the things that helps with having the Neola policies, once they're approved and up on our website, all of us would be able to go live and you could type in some sort of keyword, like if you wanted to know anything about transportation, you could type in transportation and you could see any policy that would govern transportation. So it helps us, I think, in a way, not trip up on a law that we may not even know about or consider when we're dealing with some situations that maybe we don't deal with very often, because these are stock. Legislators have said we have to have something on this, and so that some of that stuff. We don't have to have a policy on everything, and so there's some, there's policies that you're like this, we just don't want to have. That's why we go through this process, and you can say, hey, this just doesn't fit our district, and we don't want to. We do have to follow the law, obviously, and so if there's something that's governed by law, then we don't have a choice on that. But if it's not governed by one of those codes, we can do what we want with that.
And that can happen at any time. The board always has
Absolutely.
control of that, so
We can
just because
change
we approve
policies
it,
at any time.
they are extremely wordy and repetitive though.
They are.
Hard to read.
Yeah, you have to take breaks, get out and walk around, and come back, read 10 more.
I make it a
Go to
point
work.
not to talk
Do
too
not-
much here. In defense of the profession.
Josh keeps up on them.
One thing that can be helpful is and this is not necessarily just with Neola, but anytime you've got a specific policy and a policy is challenged, it always helps to be able to point and say, this is what's the widely accepted policy. This is what 95% of the other school corporations are using, or this is, the standard language, maybe slightly modified for each school corporation, but in general, where you're coming in and you're accepting a widely accepted policy. If something is challenged, it's much stronger if you can then point and say, this is kind of the industry standard. So.
And I'm curious, because I'm relatively new to this, are these specific to Indiana, or are they national?
They're more specific to Indiana
Okay.
because of the Indiana codes.
Okay.
And the gentleman that helps our Neola representative, his name is Jim Halleck. He's a former, and he does lots of interim superintendent positions as well, but he's a former superintendent for many, many years. And so has lots of experience with schools and situations. Like when we initially, Dr. Galvin and I went through this initial process to go through every policy and say, there's often a choice line. You can pick A or B. And we would go through and say, well, this fits our district better. So I know it's pain to read them, but I promise it was worse on the other end. But when we would do that, he would often tell the stories of, I might say, well, I think we want this. And he'd say, no, this is why you want this one, because this situation happened, or I've seen this happen before, and this is why you're going to want that protection as a board, or that, and so that was really helpful to have someone with so much experience to talk us through a lot of these.
It's also, I don't want to say I get a lot of calls, but it's helpful to have the corporation-specific policy. It's amazing what sort of random little things will come up that might end up warranting a call to me, that ends up a call to Indianapolis, that ends up kind of a chain. And I think that the more detailed policy you have, the faster you're able to get in and get that answer. It might be worded at first, but it kind of cuts out some of that chain of, basically it cuts out research on my end, which cuts out legal fees for the corporations.
So are there any concerns about the second read of the student section? Is everyone okay with our motion to approve
Yeah,
those?
so I'll move to approve the second reading. Student section.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, you still have a first read, and so no action on this, but a first read of the program and property books. Those are loaded. Thank you, Vince, for notifying me the program one, or the property one wasn't there. The program and property have been loaded. I've also gone ahead and loaded the last two as well, because they weren't there either. So, but we're officially first read on program and property. And expect next month to do second read and approval on those two, unless you have changes. So if you look at those and you have suggestions for changes, you are welcome to email me or put it in our spreadsheet. Let me know if you put something in the spreadsheet, because I don't just look at the spreadsheet.
You don't do that every day.
All day.
No, no, I don't. So let me know and I can make those changes pretty quickly and easily.
All right. We did put an RFP out for banking services for all three schools, or all four schools, for extracurricular accounts. And after reviewing the bids, made the decision to go with, or present to you our decision to look at First Bank for our extracurricular accounts.
Looking for a motion to approve First Bank. It's the extracurricular account bank.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? So the main difference between those two is the interest rates.
Yes, yes.
Did Fifth Third pay us any interest rate at all? Does anybody know?
I'm used to extracurricular accounts not making interest rates.
That's why I'm asking,
So-
that's curious.
And the main reason to go away from Fifth Third was for convenience at this.
Right,
Right,
because
yeah, 'cause
technically by law, they
they
have to make a deposit every night. If they have money in the building, so they'd have to drive into Evansville or to do that, so.
Mhm.
We still have our main banking with them.
Is that anything we're gonna look at anytime soon, you think, or?
No.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Just to follow up on that, I still think payroll is probably our biggest need for that service, and that's just a lot of moving pieces.
Understood.
We would like to go ahead and purchase some additional cameras and licenses for South Terrace and the high school at a cost of $6,160.83. That would be paid for out of funds still from the 2019 bond.
Looking for a motion to approve some camera purchases.
I'll make a motion that we approve the camera and license purchase.
Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
The next piece is just kind of FYI. Last month you did vote to, go ahead and do some advertising with Lamar. They're storming on that Tuesday, decided to take that sign out. Lamar's not going to replace it. So if you're looking for that sign, you won't find it. Next, speaking of weather, we would like to look at experimenting with what's called BAM Weather Service. It is a weather service that will have a meteorologist that will just look at our area so that when the weather's coming in, they can give us a more detailed specific, and we would select a high school for our point of reference between the three buildings. That would give superintendent a license and probably the AD a license, and that way if they're at ball games on the fields, things like that, they can look to see lightning strikes, incoming weather. So that's a yes, thanks. 2265 cost. Currently, East Gibson, Southern Gibson, North Gibson, and Mount Vernon, we all went together with this just to see what kind of pricing we could get to get better pricing on that. Duno Corporation has used it, and they just get more detail. They can actually just call up to BAM Weather and talk to a live meteorologist at the time to say, here's what's going on in your area. Not just, watching the Weather Channel, hope it updates, or, 14 News weather, see if it updates, or trying to get something on the TV that's more broad, not specific to just our neck of the woods.
It's available 24, or weekends, everything.
24/7, 365.
And that's an annual expense then?
Yes.
Looking for a motion to approve the contract with BAM Weather.
I'll make a motion, we approve the contract with BAM.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Have the other school corporations listed, have they already approved it, or we
I
kind
do
of
not know.
expect them to
We
approve
expect them
that?
to, yes.
And what you're saying is that if we've got a team leaving for a trip to go to, Princeton, Wayland can call this number and they'll tell them what it looks like.
No, it will be specific for North Post,
How
North
many
Posey
others?
High School.
I'll tell you what's gonna be happening at North Posey High School.
Right, but with the other school corporations around if the other school corporations around adopt it, then North Princeton will have that information as well for their site.
Are there any schools close to us that use this service?
One just east of us, yes. the EVSC purchased this and uses that to help with their decision-making in and out of school, and then also with after-school activities.
I was familiar with this company as well before I moved here, and they also have a great app that you don't have to just call. Like it's almost like a chat app that you can, like for example, the scenario we were dealing with last week, we would have had a personal meteorologist being able to talk us through timing of some of those storms. Obviously, it's still a guessing game, especially when you're talking those kinds of storms that sort of pop up, and so, but someone directly that would have been looking at our data and helped us make that decision on what time was best to release or to hold students in that scenario. And so I have had experience with working through that chat function too, and they're pretty good at that.
I would have loved to have had that when I was athletic director.
I think you made a good decision last week, even though it wasn't what we thought. But
Appreciate that.
I know you can't make everybody happy, but
Actually, from just what you saw on social media and everything, everybody was really grateful, understanding.
because really when the weather makes it out to be, this could be really big, the kids were scared too, like they all kind of knew, I think. So I think it was the right decision.
Good.
Motion and a second. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
I think before I got to tell you, I learned about some things with bus transportation. Now I know more about asphalt than I ever knew before. Gatoring, milling, or gator and milling. So, looking at our parking lots, I think except for a portion of South Terrace, nothing has been done since, probably 2017, 2018. We had some companies come out, take a look, and you can see their bids there. We're going to recommend that HAC receive our bid for taking care of some troubled areas in our parking lots and then going on and sealing them.
Okay, looking for a motion to accept a quote from HSC Pavement Maintenance.
I'll make a motion that we accept the quote from HSC Pavement Maintenance.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on that?
Yes, what is this, you say troubled areas, does that mean the whole parking lot's gonna be resurfaced and then just
No.
work on certain areas? Or they're just gonna find certain areas and,
She's on here. I'm gonna try to sneeze on here, Blair. We have some areas that we have some depressions that they'll, what they call mill it out, make sure it's stable underneath it before they'll patch those areas. The cracks will come through with a rubberized sealant and go through all the cracks, seal those, and then they'll come back through and then, put the sealer across all the parking lot.
all the parking lots.
So instead of a faded gray, you'll see a nice, deep black in the fall.
Okay. They'll just fix areas, but then they'll reseal the whole parking lot and restripe and reline it.
Yes. Good addition.
This will happen at the beginning of the summer.
Yes, I sent out dates to the principals and they approved it. I'll get those for you. I don't have them with me.
There needs to be more handicap accessible spots, especially at the high school.
You said it had been since 2018, since some of this has been done.
Yes.
Do you expect to have a more regular schedule of it from here on, or?
We'll work on that. Right now, and something I didn't mention before is South Terrace still had money from the last bond that will pay for this piece. And we discussed this, I think the high school still had funds, not complete funds to pay for it. And we do have money in the operations account to pay for the rest. But yes, try to get more on a schedule instead of having it all hit at one time.
And maybe a staggered schedule too. All right.
Exactly. I think we have to hit it all at once right now, just
Right.
because anybody who walked out said, the first thing is like, oh, this hasn't been done in a really long time. And then they wanted to point out where the asphalt is what they call gatoring. So if you think about alligator's back, and you see how all the checker is on it. We have several spots, I got the high school, and that's where there's quite a few of those. But they're also gonna go ahead and do that, the path at the high school all the way down the side and then into the tennis court area. And then at South Terrace, the basketball court would be included.
Anything else on that? Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, Mrs. Buda was asked if she could participate in the 12th cohort of Indiana Principal Leadership Institute. I was a mentor for the first and third cohort, so it's kind of hard to believe that they're on their 12th. But this is a great opportunity for principals to, number one, network. Number two, receive some phenomenal professional development with even international educational speakers, national. Todd Whitaker has been a presenter to them. Bob Marzano has been, and those are just opportunities that you just don't, people just don't get to be in a small room or, a small setting and have access to these type of people who see things across the world in education. What they also do is they do climate audits with the principal school. And then in the second year, the principal actually gets to bring 2 or 3 teachers with them. And then they work on creating their school improvement plan off the data. So I guess 2015 was their first year, and 2014, 2015. So for $1,000, and then the second year we'll have some expense with some rooms for the teachers and stuff. Mrs. Buda said she'll end up staying with family up in Terre Haute. That's where she's from. But for $1,000, we couldn't pay that and get the professional development that she'll experience with them.
Looking for a motion for Mrs. Buto to participate in the Indiana Principal Leadership Institute.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second,
I'll second.
maybe it's Ray.
Okay.
You get the next one.
Any other discussion on that?
Have any of our other principals?
Some of our principals have gone through, they call it an alley, and it's for new principals. Mrs. Buda was an intern for 2 years before she came to us, and I know what she experienced when she was an intern, so I really think an alley would probably be at a slower pace for her. I think IPLI would be more appropriate for her skill set. That we have had them go through an alley. I think Sean and Steve both did. They're both run out of Indiana State. They were both, their funding does come from the state. Title II grant, I think, is where it impacts across the state. So, yeah.
Anything else on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Dr. Walden has the next 2 items.
Next we have, this one is kind of twofold. So what we're looking for is both an approval from the board to apply for the educational flexibility program, but it's also acting as kind of a public hearing of this item as well. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on why we're applying for this flexibility. So with Title I funding, there's some rules with Title I that we have to expend 85% of the budget annually. So this grant spans over a 15-month time period. And then when the grant closes, what is left over, if you don't spend that 15%, they reallocate it to the following grant. So they call it our rollover. So we're constantly doing amendments on our Title I grant because we'll get a funding amount, we write our budget, we apply for the grant, And then they will give us our final funding amount, which is sometimes a little bit different once student numbers come in. So then we'll amend the budget at that point. Then we kind of operate for most of the year under that operation budget. In the spring, they will give us our reallocation from the prior grant of any money that rolled over. So there, in any given year, we're sort of operating with two grants that are overlapping at any one time. So any one grant cycle usually gets up to about 2 or 3 amendments during that time cycle. So that's kind of, I know it's a lot and it's a little bit confusing, but that's how that title money flows. So we are required to expend up to 85% of the budget. When we wrote that grant, this one that we did not spend 85% on, the 22-23, we wrote into that grant. That's when we were starting to see some increased behavior needs at North Elementary. And so we wrote in some professional services to be able to contract out. We were thinking we might be able to contract out with like Youth First or a BCBA provider, which is a behavioral specialist type provider. We were looking for a behavioral interventionist. And our idea was we would contract that out and not hire an internal employee when we originally wrote that grant. So we had put enough money into the budget to contract those services. We spent about 6 to 8 months calling everyone we could, calling psych offices, calling BCBAs, calling Youth First. What do you know? Who do you know? How does anybody do this work? Lots of people doing the work, but not services that would get out to us out here in Posey County. And so that's when we came back to the board and we said, okay, hey, we're really struggling to find a service provider for this work. Our idea now is, what if we contract this person ourselves? And that's when we brought the behavior interventionist idea, and we hired Alicia Slayton as the behavior interventionist. So through that time period, we then didn't really have enough time to expend on her salary all that we needed to. And so we were about $2,000 short, expending the 85%. So the state, this happens, with schools, so they have programs here available to have some flexibility. This one is the one that the option that we are looking at is probably the least restrictive. It just allows us to say, hey, we need to extend that up to, where's my number, is it 20%? I don't have them all memorized, but I think we're allowed to 25. We can take it up to 25%, which covers that amount. And so that's what we're looking for today. It's a pretty simple application. I've shared the application in the board packet. It's a JOT form that I would have to fill out, but that's all the information that I've shared with you. And so we were just asked for 1 year that they allow us to extend the 25%, which means that then they would roll the $2,000 or $2,417.91 over to our new grant.
I know when we approved the behavior interventionist last year, it's a very expensive hourly rate. We had discussed that. It's a part-time position. We talked about coming back and reassessing that this year as far as our needs. Does this tie our hands in any way?
This doesn't mean we're renewing her contract for the next year, but
No, this
the
is,
same thing.
all we're doing here is saying, we understand that we didn't spend the 15%, we didn't spend 85%. We're asking for you to move that to 75% for that 1 year so that we can roll this money over. The explanation part was why we didn't expend it is because we tried to do it, we tried to go find these services. It took us a long time to figure out that the services weren't there. We went a different way. It was cheaper than what we originally planned and less time, and so we just didn't get to spend the money.
And if we don't do this, that's money wasted.
Correct.
So,
When do we hear about how it worked and what it done and stuff like that? Do we get
Mr. Slagle asked that next month I bring you a presentation on the data that we've collected this year with the behavior interventions position. And so this summer we'll be writing our new Title I grant. And so that's where we would decide how we're going to spend next year's
And
Title
then
I
this, what
dollars.
we're doing here is making sure the money that we didn't spend goes into that, okay?
Correct.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the Ed Flex waiver.
No second.
A motion and a second. We've already had some discussion. Is there any other discussion on that?
Thank God I don't have Michelle's job to learn all that stuff. Really.
Thank you.
This is probably exciting compared to Neola policy. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
I
Motion.
nerded out over the
Motion
I
carries
do
by
too,
the-
Greg. Like the
That is way more entertaining than what she just had to deal with. I can't imagine reading all that stuff.
All right, next on the list, we have textbook adoption. I put together just a spreadsheet for you, a quick look, to try to make it a little easier to see what we were approving. But then all the nitty gritty details are in the rest of it with all the requisition forms.
But all of that was so helpful. Thank you.
Good.
Looking for a motion to approve the textbook adoptions.
I'll make a motion that we approve the textbook adoptions.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that?
And what classes are these for? These are miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous, so art, music, CTE, so business, our ed professions pathway, construction, agriculture.
Handwriting, that's interesting.
That's gonna be an annual, so that's not
Okay.
that is not a new adoption, it's just an order that we do, it's a consumable item every year.
And normally, don't they usually display them for us or something, or is that not done anymore?
They were at the schools.
Well, they were at the school to go look at, okay.
So last month, we, just did sort of like, here's the information, this is what we're, proposing that we
Okay, I
adopt.
remember that now.
And so then they were available for the last month for anybody to review. This was a new, go ahead.
We're probably way too far in the distance, but how, like with the new state diplomas, all the pathways, all that stuff, will these cycles, I know we go, English, math, or whatever, however they are, how are we gonna get the ones that are, I guess, out of cycle with that 2029 cohort?
So one thing you'll notice, if there was on the type of order, you'll see new adoption there. Sometimes if we are adding a new course, then that would come in whatever year. If we were adding a new English course, for example, because in the new diploma, you can have some different leeways with English. So I'm just gonna throw one out as wild. We're gonna do a graphic novels course, and so let's say we're gonna do that. Then if we created that course with content standards, that course, we would bring that to the board to say, we're asking for a new approval of a new course. Like we did last month, we approved some new pathway courses. Well, those happened to be during the miscellaneous time. That's just sort of it happened to be that way this year. Those could happen any year. If we were in English adoption and we needed to add a new math course, we would do that during this process, even if it wasn't the right time, if it was a new course.
Okay. And most of these are per year fees, or, so if we had
Can you
to
spell
drop
it
a
right?
class or change a class, it wouldn't,
We have, for lack of a better term, amortized over 6 years to give you the cost per year per student.
Okay,
We're gonna pay for them up front.
up front. Okay. So there is a slight risk that we could come back and change our course or whatever and lose a couple years on the end of that.
You could. I don't see
The core,
with what we're adopting, I don't see a risk of that, but obviously I can't look at
Yeah,
automatic ball to see into the
and
future either.
I think it'd
so.
be more of a risk the next, 2 years from now when we go to adopt those.
And the book is always just a resource that can always use
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
resources.
So just on an organizational note, this was new process for all of us this year because last time we said we just felt like it was too fast, we didn't have enough information. Just some feedback for us, were there things you still would like changed with this process, or did you feel like you had the information that you were looking for?
I thought this was great,
I did
very
too.
organized.
Okay. Thank you. Perfect. If there's any feedback, please let me know because we can edit.
No, I like this.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
All right. Amy had a good time making calendars. No.
did.
We did create 3 options. Our option number 1, which was the most appreciated, was more of our traditional. We did that one. Actually, if you look at it, we have August 5th would be teachers' first day back. And then September 17th would be the only day that we do where students won't come to school for a professional development day for teachers. January 5th is actually that Monday after the holiday break. And so kids wouldn't be in school anyway, or used to, going that long. So kids would return on the 6th. Some of the concerns I heard from you all was the fact that we had too many days throughout the year where kids were out of school and I'm concerned about that. So that was option 1. Option 2, we did a throwback to Labor Day, trying to see if we can get in there with the state fair and everything else. And that was not a popular one. And then option 3, the only difference there is we took that September date out and put it at the beginning of the year, so teachers had 2 days at work before school started. So option 1 was the one that was liked the most. That's what we present to you this evening.
Looking for a motion to approve option 1 of the 25-26 academic calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that?
You said it was liked the most by teachers and staff, is that what?
It was overwhelming percentage. 75%.
Nobody liked Labor Day.
Don't say nobody.
6 people.
Yeah.
So 5 votes.
There were like plenty of people that sent me messages like I was gonna, and I said, I kind of liked it, but
It causes a testing problem for sure for us.
And sports, extracurriculars.
With the week-long fall break, I know that was a concern a few years back when that was put in, that it threw a wrench into some of the sports schedules. Is that seem to be going fine at this point?
It does. I mean, baseball usually will continue after the school year's over too, and softball, so.
So we're probably looking to continue with the week-long fall break for the foreseeable future then.
I plan to put one of the options in the 26, 27, going back to the 2-day, because there was, if you read all of the
'Cause all the
comments.
options had the week-long this
Yeah,
time, didn't they?
Yeah, so I am planning to, because of some of the comments that we did receive back from the teachers, I'm just gonna, kind of like I threw out the Labor Day one, and I'm gonna try to play around with that to try to get the school start date a little bit, but, there's lots of feedback saying that we're starting too early, but then those are the same ones that don't want to get rid of the full fall break. So I gotta do one or the other, so, yeah, right. So I'm gonna play with it on the next time to go back to like a 2-day fall break instead of the full, just to see what the feedback is.
I think we'll also have to investigate just what attendance look like then too, coverage.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Next, we have our personnel list for each building for 24-25 school year, and we included the requested hours for the cafeteria staff.
Looking for a motion to approve the personnel list as presented.
I'll make a motion, we approve personnel list.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion on that. I assume there's probably going to be changes between
Absolutely.
now and when school starts, and that'll kind of be a working document.
So, one made today.
Good enough.
Next, we have professional leave.
We got
Oh,
the
got it.
stuff. Okay. No other discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
All right. So next, we have professional leave. Michelle Parrish is wanting to go up to Indianapolis for early college network meeting. And Braxton Lee is, I don't know what all the letters stand up for in the acronym, but I do know it has something to do with wrestling. And they're going up to Indianapolis for that. Tomorrow, Dr. Wall and I will be going up to Terre Haute to learn more about our potential solar field project. We met with the gentleman about 2 weeks ago and to see if it's as good as it sounds. It looks pretty exciting, the opportunity that it has for us in revenue, so. And then Dr. Walden, Ms. McMahon and Mr. Ball will go up to, it's a well conference. I'm trying to think. Is IASBO putting that on? No.
The superintendent one, IASB,
PSS.
PSS, I can never get the letters right.
So that'll be in Greenwood in June.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve the professional leave request.
I'll make a motion to approve the professional leave request.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, good news report. I've been excited about this the whole meeting. How long have we been at this? For a bit. If you noticed, if you got to look through there, you saw that our elementary principals were really putting the toppings on for to get the kids motivated for iLearn. If you don't get the pun there, they were dressed up like Sundays, and the kids got to put whipped cream and sprinkles and everything else on them. That's just dedication right there. That's all I can say. We do have our high school principal, Mr. Fisher, was, I don't think that made the report. It came out after the report was created, but he is the Indiana Association of School Principals, Principal of the Year for District 11. So congratulations to him. And we have lots of other good things that are in our good news report that you can look through and see. Another great news coming up next Friday, graduation. Dr. Walden, she's got some extra Kleenex boxes in her office this week.
A little sad.
But how exciting. And then congratulations to the 5 of you for being recognized by the Indiana School Board Association for your hard work. We have to buy a new plaque. We had to squeeze the one in there on the end and the gold. So I appreciate the time that you put in to make sure our kids have the best that they can have. And a great atmosphere for our teaching staff and all of our regular staff. Our next board meeting is going to be Monday, June 10th, with an executive session starting at 5:30 and the board meeting at 6:30.
And graduation for us, what time do we need to be there?
It said 7 on there, but
someplace.
we
A
usually,
little earlier than that, right?
6:45 is
Yeah.
usually about it.
so we can get the picture, yearly picture.
If it starts raining, make it 6.
And Honors Day is Monday.
Monday, starting at 8 o'clock.
Yeah. I should.
Please.
That's high school honors day, is that what?
I could probably try to wear that same. August here.
Yes.
And then before you all leave, we need to sign the resolution for the reimbursement.
Anyone else have anything to add? Yeah. It's only 8:14.
Yeah,
I have to go back to work tonight, so. All right, then I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion with adjourn.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second, and this meeting is adjourned.
I just need to sign.